Hello guys, I am back from another video and today we're talking about what if Belle was from Terraria. So in the last video we talked about how after the whole, literal invasion of, several crimtate monsters and also the whole fight between him and also the two bosses, specifically the Eye and also the Brain of Cthulhu. After those, he would basically go back into the dungeon and would start, plant some seeds. Specifically, seeds to the jungle biome, which, by the way, still hate that biome. For obvious fucking reasons. Like, seriously, the mobs are super hard there. Like, seriously. Anyway, then he started planting corruption, seeds, which he put it nearby. And finally would add hollowed seeds. Yeah, I could imagine that, he's basically at endgame, so even though he's technically at endgame level now, technically, in this world, he's technically, about, near hard mode. Like, near-ish hard mode. But he's able to basically, put in, hollowed seeds, so thankfully he's able to do that. So, after doing that, he would basically start to leave the dungeon and see a girl. In this case, the girl from last episode. Or more specifically, last episode. After seeing her being beat, or at least, beaten and battered, Belle would hear that she needs to pay somebody. So, after giving her some of his phallus, which he adamantly tried to give back, but Belle would say that he still has a lot, so he would basically leave and she would basically say thank you to him, even though Belle didn't really hear it. So, after arriving back home, apparently Hestia wants to go on a little, I guess you can say, resting thing or whatever. She wanted to go to the Monsterfilia with him, which apparently it's basically like a coliseum, which Belle would gladly oblige. So, after arriving back, to his bedroom, or at least somewhat of a bedroom, he sort of has a bedroom now thanks to the help of, let's just say a bit of help, let's just say that. And so he would basically fall asleep. The next day, he would basically start, doing some of his, usual jobs, basically going around, until he would basically, wait for a second, but before they can actually go to the, to the Monsterfilia, they decide to go and eat at the, Hostess of Fertility. After arriving there, they're basically, just having a bit of fun until some big guy by the name of Big Johnny would basically, challenge him to a drinking contest, which he happily obliged. One little caveat: he cannot get drunk, so thankfully he didn't lost, and Big Johnny would be defeated. And apparently this is his first loss, which, let's just say, everybody was pretty surprised. So, currently, some other familiars were basically there, and when they saw, Belle, they were wondering, I wonder, they're basically asking to themselves, I wonder how he actually, why did he decide to join, Hestia? And some of them would think, probably just Hestia decided to use her own body as the payment or something. So, yeah, let's just say Belle was not really happy about that, even though he didn't really hear it. So, let's just say he sort of sensed it. So, after that little drinking battle, he would basically, be told that, that Hestia was being, talked by, a certain, goddess of Forge, or the goddess of the Forge, aka Hephaestus. Hephaestus would basically want to talk to him, and the little conversation was not really a conversation anymore, thanks to the help of, her being drunk, and she would basically start, let's just say, kissing him. So, yeah, after a while kissing, and also a bit of, I guess you can say, tongue action, they would basically release, as she would basically say that she wanted to go on a date with him. But unfortunately, he has to go to the Monsterfilia with, not Hephaestus, I meant Hestia. She would basically say maybe the next day, and so he would basically leave. After doing that, he would basically fall asleep, but before, we actually ended off that episode, we go back to the, dungeon, where currently these seeds are finally growing and causing the entire area of the dungeon, or at least some parts of the dungeon, would start to, change, transforming into the jungle. Then and if you're wondering how is the jungle biome actually being formed, because technically that place is basically mostly made out of rock or stone. And the way to turn, an area into, a biome based for, the jungle, well, you need to have, what is that called, you need to have mud. Well, let's just say that that specific part of the dungeon was made out of mud, okay? Let's just say that. And then we go to the corruption, and the corruption would start to grow. And as for the hollow would start to grow even more as well, causing the entire stony area to become, pearlstone, or at least pearlstone. I don't really know the actual name, or at least I think that's the name of the actual, the actual block. So, after doing that, we go to another part of the dungeon, or more specifically, the dungeon from Terraria. The one where we had to fight, Skeletron, which I'm gonna get to that, but just wait. Okay? Good. So, we go there and we see a old man that seems to be terrified and seems to be talking to himself. And this weird voice would basically tell him that he's his master, as he would basically start to growl in pain and his eyes would start to change. And we left it off at him basically just screaming for help. So yeah, that is basically what happened last episode. And so, let's talk about what happens next, dude. So, we go back to Bell, basically, getting ready for himself for, going to the Monsterphilia with, Hestia. As after wearing some simple, clothing, mostly, just this, but, with a... wait for a second. Just imagine also wearing some sort of black jacket on top of that. Basically, it basically has long sleeves about near, his, wrists. Yeah. As after basically wearing that, he would basically start to leave with Hestia. Hestia was basically holding on to his arm, as everybody's basically looking at him, as all of them would think, yeah, she's probably just using her own body to basically, satisfy Mr. Bell so she can use him as, her, familiar member. Even though, technically, that's completely not true. Technically, it's more like, Bell is basically, doing this out of, I guess you can say, some sort of pity. Kind of. So, as Bell is basically going around town, basically looking at all of the sites, as he would start to get food. Hestia, in this one, she doesn't like Bell. As in, she doesn't like Bell as in, crush way or anything of that sort. It's more like a motherly way, just like all gods and goddesses in this universe. Some. Looking at you, what's her name? Ishtar, yeah. Looking at you, Ishtar, and also, yeah, maybe-ish to, Apollo. Yeah, at least some of them. Actually, most of them, actually, now thinking about it. So, as Belle is basically, getting food for her and also for him, they would arrive at the Monsterphilia, which they would see lots of adventurers and also some aspiring, entertainers, basically taking down monsters with ease, and also with style. Wait for a second. As Belle is currently watching this, he would see right beside him was a few adventurers from the guild, which some of them would recognize him as they would think, well, this is certainly interesting, as they would go back to watching all of this, the Monsterphilia, and after the show, they would basically start to all leave, being satisfied with the, show. Wait for a second. So, as Belle and Hestia are basically going to leave, they would hear about something about, a monster getting loose, which kind of concerns Belle, but he would just ignore it for now, thinking that the monster would not, go to them. Oh boy, he was wrong. So, as Belle is basically going out of his way to, help Hestia out, because she was wearing high heels, which she was not used to at the time, so she was slipping and falling, so Belle has to, carry her. So, after a while of carrying her, Belle would start to hear the sounds of, smashing and also hearing the sounds of screams. As when Bell looks up, he would see a gigantic ass ape with a helmet and seems to be wielding some sort of weapon. Yeah, this is definitely the, escaped monster. Bell would basically tell, Hestia to get out of there and would summon in his, his harpy, pet, aka summoning his pet, baby harpy, Sarah, to basically bring, Hestia back home to the, to the church. After seeing, Sarah, she would say, is that, as you would say this? Yes, that's my pet. Now go! After saying this, she would start to leave with Sarah, as Belle would look back and see the large ape just looking at him. As Belle would say this, alright, guess I'll just have to go serious mode then. As Belle would basically deactivate, I guess you could say the, cloaking, I guess, in his armor, kinda similar to, what is that called, the, stealth suit armor, more specifically the one in Terraria, the one that, specializes in guns, and it's made of mushroom, I think. I can't really remember all that much, but it's basically that. It's basically, the Vortex armor before, the Vortex armor actually came into the game. Basically at the time, it was basically the strongest, ranged armor at the time. So, as when Bell basically, deactivates it, well, the ape would see his armor as Bell would basically bring out the Terra Prisma and summon these swords. The swords would basically rush in, basically slicing through, the ape. The ape would start to become a little bit angry and start, swatting them away. As he would say this, oh no you don't, as he would basically bring up his, kaleidoscope, as he would basically start to whip it at, the large ape. As he would grab the dolphin machine gun in his other hand, as he would basically start to shoot at it. The beast is basically currently angry right now, as Bell would basically dodge out of the way, as after a while basically whipping it, these swords would basically, get their priorities straight and go back to the fight and basically start fighting against, the large ape himself. As Bell would basically bring up his, black spot, aka the pirate ship, as he would basically start to fly basically above it and basically start, whipping it. And thankfully the ape isn't, that strong to basically, jump that, high. As Bell is basically saying, haha, take that you stupid monkey, as you start whipping it as the swords would start slashing it. The ape had enough and would basically grab something off the ground, more specifically a fruit stand, as you would throw it at Bell, as Bell would basically start, go topsy-turvy. He's basically going like, Mayday! Mayday! As he would basically fall down, as he would basically crash, the pirate ship. When it disappeared, Bell would say this, oh crap, as you would see the, large ape basically charging at him. As Bell would say this, as you would grab the ancient horn and summon his basilisk. As Bell would basically start to run away, as in hot pursuit, the large ape is basically chasing him. Currently, with the other members of the Loki Familia basically taking care of some monsters that basically escaped as well, they would see, a large blur which caused several of the stands and also eyes and also some members of the Loki Familia to basically, go flying. As one of them would say, specifically Finn, what was that? As one of them would say, I think that might have been, as Izuku's basically, running away from the ape, as Bell would basically, he would say, crap, 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 as he would basically grab, his, wait for a second, he would start to get the nebula blaze, as he would start shooting at it with, dark energy, or purplish fire. Because the blaze part, every time when I think of blaze, I think of fire, so, and it's actually purple, so why not? So, he would start shooting at it, as currently the beast, aka the monster, is basically raging right now. Just imagine it basically like raging like Bakugo, but 10 times as worse. So Bell is currently trying to escape it, as Bell would say this, alright, I think I have enough momentum, as he would basically swerve around and would basically, play chicken with the goddamn, ape. As when it would be, in contact with the ape would be knocked out and would basically start flying like a baseball. as everybody would start looking at Bell and seeing him ride on the weird-looking creature, aka the basilisk. And it's technically about the size of like a normal horse, but the ape was about 10 times the size of that. So, how the literal freaking hell would that actual, little thing over there would actually, throw this thing off into the stratosphere, or, atmosphere, or, you basically get it. So, after doing that, everybody's basically just looking at Bell, as Bell would say this. I think I might have taken care of the problem. Meanwhile, currently in the, Ganesha Familia, or more specifically the Colosseum, one of them would say, boss, we couldn't find the ape, so, as Ganesha would say this, don't worry, we might as well try and find it, and maybe even kill it. But either way, we should just wait, and maybe probably wait for our other members. As you would say this, as coincidentally, the ape would basically, fall to the ground, arriving at the Colosseum, crashed onto the ground of the, Colosseum, and basically knocked the fuck out. As one would say this. See, told ya! As Ganesha would say, as everybody would just have a deadpan expression. Let's go back to Bell right now. So, as Bell is basically, done doing that, everybody would just see Bell basically riding on the basilisk, as he would basically tell the basilisk to basically try, or at least, go back home, or, disappear. As it would disappear, turning back into the, ancient horn. After doing that, everybody would start to clap for Bell. Currently, with Bet is still basically raging right now, thinking that he should have, gotten the, glory. But is somewhat proud, I guess. So, currently with the other, other familias there, one of them, specifically one member from the, Aphysis familia would basically, think, yeah, I should probably report this to Aphysis. And so he would leave. So, after, getting some praise from the, civilian, or the civilians basically there, he would basically start to leave, and when he was about to, arrive back home, he would see, the doors would open and would see, Hestia. As Hestia would basically hug Bell, as she would say, "You're okay!" As Bell would say this, "Yeah, I am, and please stop hugging me, it's a bit awkward." As she would say this, "Oh, right, so, Bell, how is it?" As Bell would say this, "Oh, I'm pretty much fine. How about this?" As Bell would basically grab some things, as Bell would basically, give her some food that they gotten, thanks to the, the help of the civilians that gave him, I guess you can say gifts. As she would say, "Whoa, who gave you those?" As he would say this, "Well, some people think of me as a hero now, so they would basically give me food." So, as Hestia would basically gladly, start chowing down, including Bell. After eating, both of them would basically fall asleep. So, the next day has finally come, as Bell would basically start going back to his usual, work. As, before he can do that, he would basically open the door and would see a member of the, Aphysis familia, as one of them would say this. "So, Bell Cornell," as Bell would say this. What?" As one of them would say this. "Well, our goddess, she wants to talk to you." As Bell would say this. "God dang it." As after saying this, one of them would say this. "Don't worry, it's gonna be a quick talk." Or one of them would basically say, or at least whisper to him, "Are you sure about that? It's gonna be an entire fucking day. Or should I say a fucking date?" As one of them would say this. "Oh, shut up. I mean, don't tell him that. He might run away." Belle would not hear this, as Belle would say this. "Sure, I'll come." As she would say, "Wonderful." As all of them would basically start to bring Belle to, Aphysis' workshop. After arriving there, Aphysis would be there basically changed into, I guess you could say, like, normal-ish civilian clothing. Wait for a second. So, after basically arriving at the Aphysis' shop, he would see Aphysis wearing pretty feminine clothing. Like, she's basically wearing some sort of, mini skirt, which it's a bit too mini if you get what I mean, and it's basically showing off her, let's just say, her thick thighs. And she's wearing some sort of, like, a light, I guess you can say a light shirt with, a little jacket on top of that. She's wearing some sort of hairpin, which seems to be made of adamantite, the same metal that Belle basically gave her. As Belle would say this. Oh, hey Hephaestus. As she would say this. Oh, did you forget? As Belle would say this. You mean as she would say this. Yep, our date. As currently the other members basically perk up at this, as one of them would say this. So she's basically going on a date now. As one of them specifically and there seems to be one prominent person there. Specifically a man with reddish hair and grayish eyes. He seems to be wearing some, almost Asian-ish clothing with a blue bandana on his neck. As you would say this. You can't believe that Vices, the literal embodiment of tomboyish or tomboyishness, is actually going on a date. As one of them would basically smack him on the head, as he would say this. Oh, what was that for? As he would say this. Don't say that thing. Don't say things like that. And besides, this guy actually seems to be quite good for her. And she really needs it. After all, she is a bit stressed. After all, her eye, remember? As one of them would say this. Please don't talk about that. She's basically sensitive about, that topic. As one of them would basically say this. Wait, they're going! As everybody would basically perk up, and they would see, Belle, and also, the somewhat girlied up, Hephaestus would basically start to leave the shop. As though they would say this. Wait, why not, spy on their date? As some of them would agree, except for Whelp, as Whelp would say this. Typical. As after saying that, he would basically start going back to making his sword. So, going back to Belle, and also Hephaestus. Hephaestus and Belle are basically in the streets, basically, talking to each other. Some members of, civilians were basically looking at this, as one of them would say, wait, is that Hephaestus? As one of them would say, damn, she looks cute. As one of them would say, yeah, and is she with Belle? As one of them would say this. Whoa, I didn't know that Belle finally dumped Hestia. As one of them would say this. Yeah, it makes sense. After all, she is kind of, a short stack, and, I mean, she is kind of, has a bit of assets, but she is quite of the, pretty much the weakest out of all of the, gods and goddesses here. As Belle is basically just ignoring them and basically goes on his date with, Hephaestus. Hephaestus is basically bringing him into a little shop which specializes in ice cream, which is a pretty new thing here. So, as Belle is basically, ordering some ice cream here, which Belle didn't know that actually, ice cream actually was in the game, or at least in this world, as Belle would basically start, getting some of the ice cream, which Belle would mostly get, chocolate, and for, Hephaestus, she would decide to go for strawberry, which was pretty surprising. And both of them would start to eat. Both of them basically, chit-chatting a little bit, as currently some of Hephaestus, familiar members are basically, looking at her, or at least, looking at Belle, and, basically their whole date in general. Wait for a second, as one of them would say this. Yeesh, he's actually acting like an actual boyfriend. As one of them would say this. Yeah, and she seems to be having fun. As one girl would say this. Yeah, and she's damn lucky. I mean, she's pretty hot. As one would say this. Oh, shut up. Besides, our goddess is actually pretty happy. Most of the time she's either stoic or just, stressed out. I mean, it will just help her. As one of them would say this. Yeah, I mean, makes sense. After all, we sort of cause a bit of trouble sometimes. And after a while talking, Belle and also, Hephaestus would basically finish, eating their ice cream, and so they would basically start to leave. As when they saw this, they would basically start moving towards, Belle and also Hephaestus to basically go back, to spying on them. they would see them in the park, basically, running around, and not really running around, more like, having, I guess you can say, kind of like a picnic. Belle basically grabs some, food out of freaking nowhere, which surprises, surprises, but she would basically ignore it. As Belle would basically grab some of these foods, mostly these. He would have, a few food items, but the most prominent is monster lasagna and some simple lemonade and, wait for a sec, and a large bowl of bunny stew, or just rabbit stew. So, after seeing all of this, she would say, "You made all of this?" As Bo would say this, "Yeah, it was actually a surprise." As she would say this, "Thank you." And both of them would start to, eat. While eating, she would basically try out the lasagna, as she would say, "This is amazing. How did you make this?" As Bo would say this, "A family secret." As she would say this, "I see. As she would basically grab some lemonade as she would drink it. "Ah, it's super refreshing." As Belle would basically grab some of the, rabbit stew, as he would start, drinking some of the soup, as he would grab a rabbit leg and basically start chowing down. Currently with the, members of the Feist Familia basically watching them. Some of them are basically attracted to the smell, and some of them would think, "God, I feel hungry." As some of them would say this, "Oh, shut up!" As, after a while of eating, Hephaestus would be full and also pretty happy. As she would basically look back at Belle, as Belle is basically, sitting up and basically, in the shade. And she would basically come up to him as she would say this, "Hey, Belle." As Belle would say this, "What is Hephaestus?" As she would say this, "Well, because you made me a good meal, why not, give you a little reward?" As she would basically come a little bit closer to Belle, as Belle would basically give in, a pretty deep kiss. Just like last time from last video. And so she would basically start, doing a little bit of tongue, but this time Belle would basically decide to, let himself go, and so would basically start leaning into the kiss. They would basically have a really sloppy kiss. Even teenagers, like teenage couples, would basically start to blush seeing this. Currently with the Hephaestus Familia, members that are basically watching them, some of them would start to blush, and some of them would start to cheer her on. Some of them even, basically, cheering on Belle. As after a while of basically, a bit of, tongue clashing, both of them would basically stop as Belle would say this. "Thank you, my little Cyclops." As she would say this, "Oh, nickname's Abe. Oh, nickname's A, my little snow bunny," she would basically say, as both of them would basically start the kissing again. After a few hours, they would basically start, go home, because it's about the sun, it's basically about, it's basically about to, sunset now, it's currently sunset now. As so, they would basically say goodbye to each other, as Belle would basically, bring her back to, to the Hephaestus, shop, or the, her main shop. And so would say goodbye by, Belle basically kissing her on the cheek. As while he was about to leave, everybody in the Hephaestus Familia would basically, give off some, some nice smirks, if you get what I mean. They just go like, Just imagine those types of, smiles, similar to, the Lenny face, I guess you could say. So, after arriving back home, Hestia was pretty happy seeing him, as she would say, "So, how was your date with, Hephaestus?" As Belle would say this, "How did you know?" As she would say this, "Oh, some Hephaestus Familia members talked about that." Belle would basically start to blush a little bit as she would say this, "Well, it was okay." As she would say this, "I hope so. Now, Belle, I think it's time for you to get some sleep. After all, you seem to be tired." As Belle would say this, "Oh, yeah, So, after laughing a little bit, Belle would basically change into some normal clothes, and so he would basically go back onto his bed, and so would basically fall asleep. So yeah, so this is going to be the end of this episode. And so, I hope you liked the video, comment, and subscribe, and I hope to see you guys next time. Bye-bye!